Hello and welcome to today's video, and today, as you can see, we are looking at this Panasonic NV7200. This is what I would class as a middle of the range machine. It's not quite top of the range, but it's certainly nowhere near the bottom either. Comes with a 14-day 4-program timer. It would have come with an infrared remote control, but that's probably long gone these days. There's a little IR sensor there. I actually do have a Panasonic remote control, which I've just suddenly remembered I do have. It's for a much later deck, but I'm wondering if I can find it in my pile of remote controls, if it will actually work. So give me a couple of moments, I'm just going to dig it out. So I put some batteries in and the remote control does still seem to be functioning. So let's see if it works for, say, fast forward. Play, rewind, stop. No, as I suspected. Hang on a minute, it might be because that's not fully done. Let's try that again. No, as I suspected, it's actually using a completely different remote control frequency, probably, to the earlier decks. Now, the reason why I thought it might work is I've got Sanyo beta cord decks that actually still work with Sanyo remote controls for Sanyo VHS decks, so they obviously haven't changed any frequencies. But I now do have a rather unusual calendar, so that's quite cool. It's Sunday the 28th and 12:32, so I will leave that out, and that will be a rather unusual, quirky calendar to just have. Also, a something you can fiddle with as well whilst working. Stress toy. Anyway, let's see what's up with this machine. So if we hit play, I'm using a tape I don't really care about. It does seem to play. Let's do some Q advance. And yeah, it's definitely playing, but as you can see, pictures all over the place. Tracking doesn't do anything. It seems to have moments of clarity where it's working okay. Audio seems okay, but there's a lot of dropouts on the picture. So there's no sort of warbly effect on the audio. And fast cue and rewind cue. Yeah, there's an awful lot of noise on the picture. It could be, I mean, looking at that, it could be down to one video heads. So I'm going to try and give this machine the best start possible. So if I just take off pause. There's a lot of dropouts. I am going to give the take path a damn good clean. So you will rejoin me once I've got the cover off of this deck. And yeah, very quick visual inspection. It does look quite grubby in there, so I don't know if I can focus in or zoom in to there. I don't know if that will actually focus or not. Yeah, there you go. It does look quite grubby and scuffed in there. So it could even be just a worn lower head drum as well. However, let's put that back to what it should be, which is about there. However, let's get the cover off and let's give the tape path a bit of a clean. So the first thing I've done is obviously to isolate it from the mains. Now these are relatively easy decks to get inside of. There are not all that many obstacles in the way. So if I remember rightly, this doesn't necessarily need to come, yes it does because it lips under. So this needs to come off. So this is your cassette tray top cover, and they are very specific screws for those, so you need to keep those in one place. And what it might actually be worth doing is if I just power it back up again. There we go. And just leave that in the upright position so that we can get in there and start cleaning everything up. It does look quite dirty in there, to be honest with you. Right, off we go. So round the back there are 2 screws, which I will use my little stubby screwdriver to get to. So there's 1 and 2. So this is very much a case of start with the basics. Don't go in deep end thinking that you have some electrical or Syscon servo problem. Start with the basics first, and the basics in this case is giving the tape path a real thorough clean. Also, look at how shiny that pinch roller is. That is not going to help anyone, because that is going to fluctuate the amount of tension that's actually on the cassette. So that would have the effect of causing it to slip and not maintain proper contact with the video heads. And let's have a look. Yeah, it's quite grubby around there. Inspect the head chips first as well. You might want to get a magnifying glass on those, but you want to inspect those, make sure that they're not snapped or cracked off or anything of that nature. Also take a look at the very, very small soldering points on the top of the head in these earlier decks. Make sure that they are still soldered and that the joints are not dry. Now, here we have our audio control and audio raise head, and they look okay, but they're also worth checking as well, just to make sure that there's no obvious wear signs on them and then they're not damaged. And the fact that the deck was producing a reasonable quality sound does seem to suggest that they are probably okay. So I am going to start off with some Servicol Video 40, and we're going to give the whole tape path a clean. So let's start off with these video heads. Yes, I know I'm putting on quite a lot on there, but I want to let it soak for a little bit before I start to wipe it off. I'm also going to give that pinch roller a damn good going over as well. There we go. So you see here, that's actually come away, but that is the moisture sensor. So that would have been attached to there originally. And if the deck was bought in, say it was bought in from a car or from outside storage, you would very likely get condensation forming on the heads. And that would obviously be a very bad thing to start the machine whilst it's in that sort of damp state. You will tend to get moisture absolutely everywhere. Now, this is interesting. Look at this. This little thing here is a little backup battery pack. So that would plug into, or certain, yeah, that would probably plug into here actually. So this would keep your timer and clock settings even when the machine has been turned off. It doesn't look like it is ruptured at all, but I will remove it from the machine because we're not ever going to use it again for timing or shift recordings or time shift recordings, so it can obviously come out of the machine and it's one less thing to potentially leak all over the innards of the machine itself. We also have a date marker on here, 81 12 20, 20th of December 1981. So we're able to date the machine as well, which is quite cool. So let's give this, using my standard approach of giving it a thorough clean, using a piece of paper and just running it over the heads themselves. Not too much in the way of muck coming off, but it definitely seems to be doing something. Yeah, you can definitely see some oxide coming off of it, which is better than nothing. So we'll just give that a quick wipe over there as well. Yeah, you can see quite a bit of dirt coming off of that. We're also going to wipe over the audio control heads. And this pinch roller. And the pinch roller, although it looks shiny, it does feel like it still has a certain amount of friction on it. And yeah, it looks like it is in the correct position, so it should actuate properly. Capstan feels okay. Let's give this a raised head here, clean. And yep, that's looking fine. What I will do now is just give this another douse. And there, on there again, and leave that to soak for a bit. Just checking if there's anywhere else I should be dousing. Everywhere else looks okay, although you can never tell with these things, but there was no problems with the take-up spool. That was certainly taking up the cassette, so there was certainly no problems there. Right, let's let that dry off and we will be back shortly. So I've just given the head path a really thorough clean. and unfortunately there doesn't appear to be any difference in the picture. I've actually put the sound off now, but there's certainly no difference in the picture or the sound either. So, well, there's no difference in the picture. It's still very, very noisy. So I'm going to try and adjust the position of the audio control heads. So adjusting the tracking doesn't make any difference to the picture itself. So I'm going to try and adjust the position of the audio control heads, and there's a single screw here that you can use to try and manipulate that position. So just adjust the position of the head against the tape, and unfortunately, although hang on, that actually looks steadier. I did momentarily actually make it a bit steadier. Let's see if I can physically move it. So although it did make it steadier, it doesn't seem to have... Oh, hang on. So if I bring that up against the head, and there, nah, it's still all over the place. It did seem to get ever so slightly better, but I've got to be honest, I think, although, oh hang on, so back tension. So if I put more back tension onto the tape, the picture does look a bit clearer. So let's try, whilst doing that, adjust this audio control head. No, that's doing absolutely nothing for it. But there does seem to be a certain amount of mileage with this back tension. So I'm wondering if it's a braking issue on this reel, because this reel does look quite loose. So I do wonder if it is basically braking tension against that reel. Because little changes to the pressure on the tape do seem to have effects on the picture. Now, these tape guides look okay. They're not crinkling the tape. You would normally want to adjust these if the tape is actually being crinkled, but there doesn't seem to be any crinkling of the tape. Head speed, if I slow the head, picture goes, obviously it goes into a stop state, but I don't know if it's a head speed issue. Let's try pinch roller. So the pinch roller does seem to be working. There's no issue with that. I mean, the tape is getting into the cassette. It does look quite, the tension on here does look quite loose. So let's see if we've got any way of adjusting that back tension. So you have around here, you have this brake band, which I've got to be honest, does look quite worn. So sometimes, certainly on the Ferguson machines, you have a way of adjusting the position of the brake tension, which I think we can get into through here. So I'm wondering if that will, yes it will, so that will slide to give us more braking or less brake. So I could give it more braking tension, and I'm going to pop the cassette back in and hit play and see if that does anything for us. And yes, it actually does. So although not 100%, that's a lot steadier than it was. So I got a feeling I need new a new brake assembly. So the one that's on there at the minute is really worn, but you can see now that there is a bit more tension on the cassette. If I do that, the picture is slightly steadier. It's still a bit wobbly, but it's a lot better than it was. So let's just adjust the ACE head, because I did fiddle about with that. So let's see if manipulating that helps at all. No, that just makes matters worse in some ways. So actually we can tell by listening to the audio just how in line that head is. So let's just put the audio back on the set. I'll need to turn it up for this.
Wasn't it? Now we'll never be able to tell the people of the future what it was like living in the 1980s. You tell them. City, I am talking about 100 years from now. That's true, actually, yes. I'd never thought about that. You're absolutely right, City.
What on earth are you talking about?
I wonder if I can
forget all about time capsules and...
Aha!
Why?
Yeah, there you go.
You three could tell the people of the future exactly
So,
what it was like.
watch this.
You aren't like me.
Right, let's see if I can get this focused. Okay, so there's the picture now. Okay, if I apply tension to this side of the cassette, it clears up exponentially. There's still dropouts on the colour, but it's probably because I'm not actually doing it. I'm not actually doing it the proper way. But that is miles better than it was. Obviously, if you release tension on the cassette again, on the supply spool, picture becomes noisy. Now, I might be able to fix this by... I'm actually wondering if it's just the tracking. So apply that. Yeah, sounds a bit warbly. But that's a lot better than it was. I may have actually over-adjusted that audio control head, so I'm going to need to set this up again when I've got I need to sort that out when I've got proper back tension on the tape. So, I think we have possibly got to the bottom of this one. This is a problem with, I would say this is probably a problem with the tape transport rather than anything electronic. So, let me just mute that a second. As fond as it is reliving childhood memories of Sooty and Sweep, it's getting in the way of my dialogue. There you go. I will now have to try and seek out a brake, cassette brake assembly, because I do think that is part of the issue. And yeah, if I do that with the tension and hold that down simultaneously, picture is a lot steadier. Yeah, a heck of a lot steadier. May need to adjust the head speed slightly. We still have colour dropouts all over the place, but certainly once we've got the physical side sorted out, we can then sort of move on to the electronic side if we need to. But for the minute, yeah, I think I've diagnosed this problem with this machine. So we now need to find a solution. I don't even know if they still do the back brake bands for these, but we will check and see if they do, and if they do, we can obviously get hold of one. If not, we will have a look at seeing if I can make one up using parts from using a sort of a new old stock one I've got for one of my JVC derived decks. Anyway, hope you found this video interesting. Just sort of going through some of the smaller troubleshooting points that you can go through with a video cassette recorder. Certainly from what I've learnt over the sort of past few years or so is don't dive into the electronics until you've got the tape playback and transport absolutely 100% correct. And in this instance it is obvious that we do have problems with the playback. Unfortunately I don't have any special tension measuring tape, so I'm just doing this as a visual inspection of the tape coming off of the supply reel, and you could see that it was loose. It was sort of coming off in that sort of motion rather than sort of coming off tight against the tape, which is how it should be. Anyway, hope you found this video interesting. If you have, don't forget to hit a like button. If you've got any suggestions as regards the colour dropouts, and indeed if I am on the right track, feel free to let me know in the comments. And yeah, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Oh, I put too much pressure on it. Anyway, see you next time. Take care. So before we finish, just a quick look at the braking assembly. So this one is from a Ferguson 3V29, would also suit the 3V, I think it's, yeah, 29, 3V30, 3V31, 3V32. Now you'll notice immediately that it's got this sort of like felt pad on it, which helps with some of the braking tension. This one is from this Panasonic, and as you can see there's no felt pad on there at all. At some point it's literally just sort of come away. So I'm going to see if I can get a new old stock item. If not, I'm actually going to see if I can cut a very small piece of felt and glue it onto here to try and repair this existing item here. Anyway, let's see how that goes, but certainly the first thing that we will do is actually look out for a new one of those. And don't worry, the machine is off at this point, so that has just dropped into the innards of the machine, but it is off at the moment, hopefully. Anyway, thanks for watching, see you soon.